Or to the cloud. Okay, we are recording. This is the cross-initiative meeting from August 22nd, 2019. I apologize for my nasal voice. Hopefully it won't be too distracting.
You sound like your normal self to me.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's disappointing.
Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. So we're just going to start with a quick round robin of who's on the call, and that way we know kind of which initiatives to go around. So please just chime in with your name and initiatives. I don't have to go searching.
I'm Adam Fanaproxima, reporting for the Media Initiative.
Ryan Naslet here, reporting from the Composer Initiative. Mixologic.
Lowry?
Sorry.
Oh. Go ahead.
Yeah, CMI 2.
Sorry, who was the last one, please?
Fabian, you already wrote in the notes, or whoever is keeping the cowboy, I guess.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And then me, Lowry, and I might be reporting for Claro. Christina will be joining later, so depending on whether she makes it.
Sounds good. And we've got Alex and Gabe. Yep.
Gabe's your API first. If you don't mind, I'm just going to listen today.
Sure. No, you have to talk, or otherwise you have to get off the call. Sorry. Rules are rules. Just kidding.
Lucas heading, migrate and automatic update. And I have to leave at the half hour.
Okay, maybe we can start with you then. All right, anybody else?
Looks like Mike just showed up for migrate, I presume.
All right. Oh, you got that one, Gilroy. Thank you. So, Lucas, I think you said that you were the one who had to sign off early. Is that right?
Yes, that is true.
Does anybody else have any time constraints?
Yeah, I might have to. Sorry, sorry, Lowry, we talk at the same time today.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I should also leave a bit early today, but maybe not. I don't know yet.
And I'm happy to go later because of Christina might be joining later.
Okay, so if it's okay with you guys, I think we should start with migrate, and then we can do CMI2. And then just whoever wants to go next. And once you're done, feel free to hop off if there aren't any other questions for you. Does anybody here have a preference to ask questions of core committers or framework managers that we should be focusing on?
I mean, beyond why haven't you committed all my patches, which is the question I always ask.
All right, standard. All right, so let's just kick it right off with migrate. Lucas and Mike, do you want to give us an update on your status blockers and next steps and what you need from any core committers or framework managers?
Committers have been doing a good job. Kudos. We've been making good progress on the multilingual, which is probably our biggest blocker at this point. Had a call yesterday to sort of just discuss what we could do to continue on blocking that, and I think we've got some priorities and some tough problems still to resolve. But otherwise, it's in pretty good shape.
How are you doing in terms of 8.8? Are you planning any release work, or are you hoping just to work in 9.1?
Well, the multilingual components have to kind of land before beta 1 of 9. So that's going to happen between now and then. Otherwise, the actual initiative as a whole is at a pretty stable state.
Okay, awesome.
I think the
That's
only
it.
thing here is to like hopefully get release managers verify the criteria for rocking multilingual migration stable. I think is the most important thing, is so that we don't turn that out at the end. We get back that the list of must-haves that we have is considered complete by them as well, because that's basically what the requirement is for parking the module stable, or getting rid of the module, in fact, because it's just a wrapper module to unstabilize part of migrate that would otherwise be stable.
And I think we want to say that it's 9 beta 1. Is that correct? Or at least, at the very least, we might need to have it confirmed. But that was my.
Yeah,
It was not blocking opening of the 9 branch, but the beta.
Yeah, that's what Catch posted this week, I think, on the 9 issue, the 9 requirements issue.
So
that's my understanding. I hope that we're going to be done by 8.8 beta. Would be way better. We are trending towards that right now.
Okay.
And then I'm just going to add, the other thing we were wanting to do before 9 is to deprecate all the Drupal 6 migrations and move them to contrib. But to do that, we've got some blockers, first of which we don't really have a procedure to actually deprecate a migration. Secondly, we're just kind of running out of time and we haven't had any work starting on that yet. So still hopeful, and with deprecations kind of being cut off at 8.8, we need to figure that out quickly, or the 6 sources are going to end up staying through Drupal 9. So one of those two things has to happen quickly. We either have to do the work and get at least the deprecations done, even if we don't get the contrib module started. But we may need, release manager sign off on that plan too. If we do just like do the deprecations and worry about getting the contrib module made next spring, we got to probably get Nat or Just to agree to that too. So one way or another, before 8.8 alpha comes out, we kind of have to have a finalized decision progress on that, or they're gonna end up sticking around in 9.
Okay. So I hear that you need 2 things from release managers. One is the criteria, and the other one is deprecation sign-off and approach sign-off.
Yeah.
All right. And do you know which release manager you're going to work with, Catch or Jess? Or is that up to them?
Typically it's been Nat.
Yeah, probably Nat.
Nat who? Sorry?
Catch pool.
Oh, Nat. Sorry. I heard Matt. I was like, Matt. Okay. All right. Need sign off on this and what we'll do next. And then need a way to get deprecated.
We also need to document the deprecation plan.
But yeah, so that was my question: is do you have a deprecation plan? Not that you say need.
We talked about it briefly yesterday.
Okay.
But it hasn't been written down.
Okay.
So someone needs to document, and someone needs to get a reviewer who can do those things.
Well, and then the other problem is all this stuff is sort of documented in random comments and random meta threads all over the place, but there's no canonical, this is the up-to-date current information. You go look at anything that you can find, and then you wonder, well, this was said 6 months ago, is it still applicable? So, we just need to have it in one spot, the current as of August 22nd plan and approvals and needs, and make sure everybody's on the same page and we're not working off old information.
Okay. I'm just making a note to follow up on these things with Catch. All right, time frame for a review. Can you give me some idea of when you would need them to take a look at your plan? Is it like next week?
Well, it's it's going to be a lot of work to do the deprecations, especially if they're going to end up requiring us to have the contrib module open before we do. But I don't know that they would need to, because there's no reason to have the contrib module right now, because it won't work until Drupal 9 is out. So I really think the big must-have immediate thing is going to end up being a way to mark the migrations as deprecated that everybody agrees works, and then B, get all of the stuff that we're actually taking out marked and triggering errors and deprecated before 8.8 alpha.
But I just mean in terms of like how long do you need to document your plan? And then that determines when someone can take a look at it.
I got to think, what do you think, Lucas? Can we get something written up this week and get someone to look at it?
Well, the thing is we have to. Whether we can, I don't know.
Well, there you go. I will find some time.
All right, let's say target, the hope, crossing fingers, is this week and get some sign off on it. Would be ideal to get your feedback next week. So obviously this is like all what we hope to do. And we'll ask. I just like to be able to say, hey, these are the requests. This is the rough time frame in which they would like to make progress on them. Hopefully that can happen. But I don't like to just say, go do these things, because then it's kind of too open-ended.
So Adam, we'll probably put that into a Google Doc, and we'll probably also pester you to weigh in on it. But it's architectural stuff that I'm sure you'll be quite happy to spend a couple of minutes looking at as well.
Okay. Works for me.
Cool. Anything else you guys want to share?
I could do auto updates.
Sure.
And then I've got to run probably. So released earlier this week an alpha 1 of the contrib module. Nothing has quite made it into core. I don't even know that I've done anything but open issues to move things into core. Right now, what our alpha includes is a something just so that we can get excited. The features are pretty limited. We have a ability to notify site owners when a public safety announcement has been released by the security team. We also have readiness checks. So there's about 8-ish or so readiness checks, and it'll see if your site is ready to have itself automatically updated in place. So those two features are available in 7 and in 8. Notifications for the PSAs happen optionally via email or just in Drupal set message on the page, sort of similar to how we have our existing alerting. We've also, as of this morning, now got a signature signing package now pushed up to Packagist. It's still a dev master, but a lot of work. Credit to many folks at Midwest Drupal Summit that not me who spent time on getting that set of code up. It's going to need some adjustments after we start actually using it. So we're going back and forth a little bit. But what this is going to let us do is have some assurance that the various files that we pass back and forth between Drupal.org and the various site owners are in fact not altered, and in fact are the original files. So man-in-the-middle attacks and so forth are not possible. So lots of good things are happening. And that's kind of been a bit of a blocker before we then go forth and build out our in-place updates. We didn't want to provide in-place updates without assurance that someone hasn't sort of intercepted things and you might be installing malicious code. So that's the 2-minute, 3-minute update.
Okay. I have one last question for you. Have you guys got a list of things or any kind of information you can share at this point about things that Dries can talk about in his upcoming Dries note?
The timelines in the initiative update are still accurate, and they're somewhat accurate because that's what the contract says. There was some funds that came out of the European Commission, and they're funding some of this work. So I probably should write something up, but I haven't. And right now, that's the most up-to-date place.
Okay, so we can, if we're going to speak to the scope of what was done, we can look at the initiative update. Do you have a link to that page handy, or you can plug it in, or just like put it in the chat here and I'll plug it in?
I'll do that here in a little bit.
Okay, or when you can. That would be good. Okay, this is where to look for what that scope will be.
Is there
Any
anything? Yeah, is there anything in sort of auto updates that's blocked on something happening in core, and especially something happening in core before?
No,
8.8?
you know, a lot of it is the DA are really being very responsive, but even with them being very responsive, it still takes just time to get things done. We're waiting on an HSM to get installed, but that's also waiting on a OS upgrade. So you know, there's pieces that are moving, but Drum has been very, very responsive, and Tim has been freed up now, and so he's been very helpful too. So I don't have any concerns from the DA. Once we move things back to core, I think there will be more discussions, but Nat has been pretty involved all along. So from a release management and even code perspective, he's been trying to pop in and do some reviews on the contrib side.
Cool. So it sounds so the 8.8 alpha deadline doesn't really affect anything that's going on with auto updates.
No, not at all. I guess if we add these things, there'll be new features, and they'll probably be added to the update module. And I would imagine once we get some more real life users of the PSA, the PSA will probably make it into core on 8. Because it just makes sense. It's not a big
Do you mean
game changer.
core 8.9?
Probably 8.9, yeah. Core 8. Whether it's 8 or 8, it's 8.9, almost certainly. Unless we do it in a point release, which I don't know if we're going to do that or not.
I think Gabor and Alex, maybe you can sanity check my logic here, but I think that 8.8 is supposed to be the last feature-focused release, and 8.9 is going to be about removing deprecations because 9.0 is coming out at the same time. Is that correct?
Yeah, my understanding is it will be very hard to focus on building anything for 8.9 because we'll be building 9. So
I'm not super stressed. There's no requirements from anyone that it has to go into 8. It's just a nice to have. It'll go into something in core at some point, whether it's 8 or 9. The same features will be in contrib, and we future-proofed the modules such that we can disable the things in contrib so that folks can sort of dual install this and have, you know, it in core in 9 and contrib the other parts of it as we're sort of moving things into core.
To my understanding, in 8.9, there's no specific block on adding new features. There is a block on adding new deprecations for things that would be removed in Drupal 9 because contrib have the ability to react. So if you deprecate something in 8.9, it has to be deprecated for removal in Drupal 10. And then the other consideration is that we are all going to be so busy working on the Drupal 9 branch that we're just not going to get any new features done for 8.9. But I don't know of any specific block that says you can't add a new feature to 8.9 if it doesn't involve deprecating something removal. In
The main thing with the PSAs is Michael Hess and the security team kind of have to sort of work out their policy and procedures of how they want to figure out when they want to decide to release these things. And then we probably want to release one with the contrib module out there installed on a handful of sites and see what the feedback is. Is it right or wrong? And then once we've had that happen once, then adjust things and move that into core.
Okay.
That's me speaking how we want to do this. But at some point we'll move it over, and it's just additional notification. It's another notification channel to the site owners.
So it sounds to me like your next steps are to wrap up the contrib work and release like a beta, maybe? Because you're at alpha right now. I assume you want to get to a beta eventually. And then after that, you want to start looking at how to get it into core after user testing.
For the PSA, so there's two parts. There's let's nag people to death that there's something coming. Then the next part is once it comes, automatically update it for the site owner. And that part we're kind of waiting on DA infrastructure.
Okay.
And that auto update in place part is going to stay in contrib for the foreseeable future until we can get some changes in core, probably some front end controller changes, things like that.
Okay.
And I got to drop, I think.
Did you guys have anything else you wanted to share before you drop? All right. All right, thanks guys. Great news. Talk to you later. Okay, so let's move on to the CMI initiative.
Yeah, hello. Unfortunately, I think we don't have the same amount of good news, but I have a couple of questions. So since, or the last time we talked, the big API patch was committed, and we were very happy about this. And I'm still very happy about this. But in the meantime, it was vacations and not as much happened. And now I'm a bit worried because the API is now in the experimental module, and it is waiting for the experimental module to be fleshed out so that the API can go into core. But not many people work on this module at the moment. And it's also going to be a rather big patch, no matter how we do it, because a lot of things need to be there so that you can actually see that the module works. We tried to come up with a plan that would kind of slice it, so we can say, okay, like first we do like the API part of it and then the UI, but there's some sort of UI needed as well, because the way the configuration or the way you would switch an environment is kind of the same way you import configuration. And so the API part is also the UI part, because it's a bit tricky, and also it's purely feature additions without any deprecations as such. So I am not sure. I mean, this could technically already be used on 8.7. So I don't know like what the best way forward is. If we should sort of break out this part into a contrib module that we can more easily work on, or I don't know what we should do.
So
Okay.
what's the concern? Is the concern that it's not? Is your concern that we're going to be shipping it as an experimental module and that's problematic, or is there some other?
No. So the concern is that by 8.8 feature freeze, the UI part of this module will not be ready yet. and then essentially all of this becomes like 9.1 only. Or like it would have to go in 8.9 when it's, and we don't get any feedback from anyone that wants to already try it before. In a way.
You broke up for me just a little bit there,
So
but I heard that.
I don't know, like.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just like trying to see how we can accelerate the development of this this module. Like we envision to have at least for like a I don't better stable experimental module, the one that doesn't get pulled out, to have like a very kind of limited MVP sort of environment configuration. But nevertheless, like there's a lot of added files, and the patch already is quite big. There is already a patch that adds the switching of environment without actually any environments. So it's a bit a funny patch at the moment. I mean, you can test it and you can work it, and it works, but it doesn't actually switch the environment. It just like switches it has a test module that switches the slogan into like the environment, but it doesn't actually like have the environment configuration yet. So like I've been working on this, but I'm a bit afraid that it will kind of miss the deadline, and then be like way off when actually it could already be like used. The API as such that we have now in core, the config split, which is kind of like the config filter, which is the old API, already has like a patch for a bridging, so that you can use the modules that use the config filter API with the new API. But obviously nobody can use that because nobody uses 8.8 yet, and so it's like yeah, it's very difficult for people to try and test it because it's kind of like only in head right now. And I don't know if it's like a good idea to break it out into a contrib module or not, or.
Right. So you need some review and some discussion in order to make a decision about whether or not the module meets functionality criteria and whether or not you should break the project up so that you can get certain things into users' hands more easily. So who needs to review this? Is it the framework managers or release managers or committers or all three?
I don't know.
I'd say it's
so,
we need a discussion with the release managers, probably not.
Probably, yeah. And like, I mean, I was discussing with Wim Leers about, because they kind of did the other way around, right? They had a contrib module that went into core, and how it works when kind of the module goes into core, and the composer shim kind of taking over the contrib module. Mm-hmm. And so that actually would work in our favor, because we could have a contrib module that we can more easily work on, or like, you know, make the patches smaller compared to like passing all of the core gates. And then once it becomes better stable in core, it would automatically take over the contrib module.
Okay, so I think your next step is you need to discuss how to break this up into smaller pieces that you can get the functionality into users' hands. Can you talk to me about time frame? I think that given that 8.8 will have an alpha in mid-October, and I know that we like to do kind of a freeze mode about a month before, which puts you at mid-September. That means that you've only got about 3 weeks if you want to get something into 8.8. And it sounds like you feel like this is not going to be achievable and you want to make some alternative plans. So it sounds like you need to talk to them soon. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is exactly my fear, because the last month, not really much happened. And I'm a bit afraid that because to get things into core always takes a bit of time, and especially because it's like all new and quite big patches. So also not a lot of people dare to review it even. I recruited a couple of people that agreed to make like manual tests and see how it works. But it's still like, yeah, daunting patches.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So we've got some good progress has been made. Plan needs more work. Decision needs to be made, and then you can move forward on either going for a later release goal or making part of it available in Contrib. Is there anything else that you're working on that is blocked or needs help?
No, not currently. We need to find more people to kind of help the other aspects of the CMI tool that we're currently not working on. But that will be like for DrupalCon and to like reach out to more people.
Okay, great. Can I reach out to you kind of offline to get some information for the Dries note?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool.
Well, it will probably depend on what we discuss in like the thing that I just said, like the discussion we need to have.
Makes sense. Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions for Fabien?
I just have a question. So who do I need to talk to?
I pinged Catch and Jess on your question, and I'll follow up with them offline too.
Okay.
Alrighty. Great. Okay, who wants to go next?
I can go next. My update will be quick.
Is that Adam?
It is. It is.
Hey.
Adam reporting for media. So I do not know when the last time I was in this call was, but what we have done for 8.8 is that we are making progress on stabilizing media library for 8.8. The things that need to happen there, we have a roadmap issue for that, which I can't dig up at the moment, but I know it exists. WYSIWYG stuff, there are 4 issues that happen that implement the WYSIWYG stuff. 3 of them are committed with a slew of follow-ups. The 4th one is very close to being RTBC. Potentially that will be RTBC today even. So once that's done, we have other sort of follow-ups which are important, but they're just enhancements. They're not like, a missing piece of the feature. And once that's done, media library is, as far as I know, feature complete, which is fucking great. And then we just have to sort of fix our follow-ups and fix the other stuff in the roadmap. We are blocked on this issue by the need for accessibility review, specifically from Andrew McPherson, because he had some stuff that he wanted us to fix when we demoed this functionality in the UX call, and we have opened follow-ups, and we've addressed his feedback, we think. And for over a week now, he has been unreachable in the sense of ping Andrew McPherson in Slack and nothing. So accessibility review is a blocker there, and this is kind of a chronic problem. But if anybody has any suggestions on how to get that or where we can dig up Andrew to sign off, I think we'd be okay there. I might just eventually go to somebody else. But overall, we're good. We have a need to add test coverage for integration with content moderation. That is blocked by another issue, which is itself blocked by another issue that is a views problem, unrelated. That one was RTBC. Then there was product manager pushback. I think that issue is close to being done, but I sort of have lapsed about it. Either way, there seemed to be a little bit of disagreement between what Alex Pott, who was serving as the framework manager reviewing that one, wanted versus what the product managers felt was appropriate. So that one's in a little bit of limbo, and as I say, that blocks a blocker. So we should get that fixed. And then the test coverage itself can land in core anytime up to RC, because it really is just adding test coverage, which I can't think of any circumstances really that the committers would reject that kind of code. So what we need, yes, as you've noted, is sign off from Andrew. That is critically important for us to get within the next couple of days. I don't know how to raise him. I don't know if anybody knows how to raise him, but if you do, please tell me.
On vacation?
I don't. Well, if he is, he didn't tell us that, and I would have. If he's on vacation, I would have appreciated that. He's known to kind of go MIA for days from Slack, where you'll ping him and like nothing. So that's just that's a little bit maddening. But if anybody knows how to get a hold of him, please tell me. Other than that, I think.
What about access checking for core?
Forget it. Access checking is not a thing we're handling right now. Our access stuff is mostly okay. There is an access chain. There's a major entity reference related access snafu, which we will not be solving in Drupal 8. We're going to solve that in Drupal 9 because that's the precursor to having a migration path over to the media system that actually works. And we months ago decided to do that in Drupal 9. Accessibility critical stuff does not need sign off. We actually have fixed all accessibility criticals for us. So that's actually not, I mean, there are still accessibility issues open, but the accessibility critical stuff, the must-haves, as far as I know, those are all fixed and they have been for a while.
Okay, but isn't that the thing that you said you needed sign off on?
No. The thing we need sign off on is the fourth of 4 WYSIWYG issues. That needs
sorry.
Sign off.
Okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
Like, yeah, forget about, like, media libraries accessibility state is actually pretty good. You know, a lot of the follow-ups related to that are fixable as bugs, just kind of on an ongoing basis. But the must-haves are all dealt with. There is one must-have issue that will be relevant once the module is marked stable, but that's not something we need to talk about. Okay. So basically, we're in pretty good shape. We need Andrew McPherson, and we need to get the views issues, the 2 views blockers fixed.
Okay.
Any questions?
Right. No, I think we got what we need.
All right, cool. Well, cheers to that.
And 2 views issues fixed for WYSIWYG. Okay. Anyone else have questions for Adam?
Oh, to clarify something, the views issues have nothing to do with WYSIWYG. The views issues are blocking the addition of test coverage to do with content moderation. The only thing WYSIWYG needs from anybody else is sign off from Andrew.
Okay, so the WYSIWYG issue is the Andrew issue.
Yes.
And then content moderation is blocked by 2
content
views.
Moderation test coverage is blocked by 2 views things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sounds good. All right, who's next?
So I can be next and take really just 3 minutes because our time check is not good according to the time we have available. So the Drupal 9 is great thanks to Mike Lutz and Ryan Aslett, basically. A lot of them are thanks to them. So core uses its own deprecated APIs much less now, only 9 individual issues that we have linked in the issue there. Mike Lutz is also tracking Symfony 4.4. So we have a testing patch there that's down to 2 types of fails now, and one of them has a patch that committers not yet agree with, so that needs to be discussed, but that's in progress, it's not blocked. D.O is now running contrib deprecation testing against contribs. The last run was August 2nd, so I think we should probably rerun that and see where we are now. Ryan figured out a way to make it run very fast in I think it's a couple hours, and then you have the data about everything. But I already posted some stats about the August 2nd data recently on my blog and on Twitter. And then recently, Catch updated the Drupal 9 requirements page, so it's much cleaner now what the requirements are. And it's basically down to the things that I mentioned, that the core should not use its own deprecated APIs. We should have Symfony 4 working in some fashion. And one more thing. And then based on our recent discussions, Catch said that when the stars align and all of these conditions can be met at the same time. According to Catch, that would be a good time to open Drupal 9. The third thing there is the multi-version compatibility, so that you could actually have a contrib projects that's compatible with Drupal 9. So those are the three criteria now for opening the 9 branch. Symfony 4 working, Drupal 8 not using deprecated APIs, and multi-version compatibility. So all of those are being worked on actively, so I don't think that anything is blocked here. Thanks.
And the multilingual migrate path, right?
No, that was being moved to a later requirement. It's not required to open a branch anymore.
Oh, cool.
So these three. So we are tracking well on these three, and we're also tracking well on multilingual migrations. But yeah, so all's good. Thanks everyone.
I think that decision is worth noting.
Yeah.
Migration,
That's why I said that Catch clarified the requirements for the branch, because the issue had some unclear language.
I'm just noting that because I think that's an important decision. Cool. All right. So you're making good progress. Do you have any blockers?
Nope.
Do you need anything from framework managers or core team?
No.
Or release managers?
No.
Okay. Cool. Excellent. All right. I think that leaves Composer and Claro. Who would like to go next?
I can go next.
I'll go since I didn't hear anybody else speak up. So Composer and Core Initiative is moving along really at a really good clip. I think all of our really hard, challenging patches are now in. I think at this point it's just the now we get to ring all the bells and blow all the whistles. So it's kind of fun. The patches that are going in now are the ones that are actually going to make stuff work nicer for people in the future. So one of the patches we had made a major change to core development workflow. And I'm kind of surprised I haven't heard any more complaints about that, but like it requires that you have Composer 1.9 installed if you're working with the 8.8 repo and trying to run Composer install. That's really just have to run Composer self-update. So since there's a lot of other core devs on this call, I figured I'd mention that, but I haven't yet run into something that was like, oh, this is a problem. So the other thing where we're at right now is just waiting on a couple of patches to get committed. They're pretty much good to go. One patch that we have right now, and this might be a kind of a question for any other core committer. I know Lee was looking at the patch last night and was like, I want to kind of get somebody else's input on this. But basically, for a short time, we will be duplicating all of the scaffold files in core. So that's like index.php and htaccess and robots.txt and those sorts of files that are not really part of /core, but are the little files that are spread out on the file system. We need those to exist for the scaffold tool to be able to put them in place with the Composer plugin. But we also don't want to move them out of the way because there are other scaffold plugins out there that are relying on their position in the file system currently. So we wanted to provide a backwards compatibility layer there. And the most sensible thing was just let's make copies of them for now and then remove the other ones later, because most of those files don't undergo very much development or change. So, you know, even though it's like, don't repeat yourself, it's like, well, we don't have that much really going on in those files. Like, it's not very often we need to change index.php. And so the sense is that we won't need to, that it shouldn't be a problem to have the files duplicated for now. But I think Lee was looking for somebody else to kind of weigh in on the sensibility of that plan. I'm not sure who he reached out to. He just had another core committer. So that's all I know there.
Okay.
Beyond that, we have a vendor core cleanup plugin. There was a script in Drupal core that runs whenever you run Composer install that strips out all of the testing files from the vendor directory. And then there was also another script that made sure there was an htaccess file in the vendor directory. We've combined that into a plugin that Composer will use instead of a script that we can use in other places, and it's basically just a vendor hardening plugin is what that is now. That one's awaiting its RTBC. So once that one gets in and the scaffold thing gets in, then we'll be able to build a template. And the template is basically going to start by just requiring the scaffold plugin and the vendor hardening plugin, and we'll be able to use that to generate a tarball that is Composer ready, which is kind of the goal of this initiative, this first phase of the initiative. Anything after that's just kind of somewhat gravy. But that makes it so that there is one way to start a Drupal project. There's no like kind of third party, like, well, here's the right way to do it if you want to use Composer. Here's the wrong way to do it. You know, that'll help with the you know, the kind of confusion that we have now. So that's really our end game. So things are looking really good for 8.8.
Is that last part? Do you think that'll be ready for 8.8 alpha?
Oh yeah. Because you mean the plugin, or I'm sorry, the template file?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Because the template file is really just it's just a Composer JSON is all it is. That includes the right files. And
Awesome.
So it's everything else underneath it that we had to get in place first. So that's all basically RTBC. But once those are, then we can actually build a template file that refers to them because they don't actually exist right now. We do have sort of mock versions of this stuff as forks on GitHub that, you know, show that it all works right now. So that's pretty much where we're at. There's been a couple of other things where it's sort of this overlap between the Composer initiative and Drupal.org and getting things ready for Drupal 9, where I've been doing a lot of work with Ted and Wim on the Composer JSON and Composer Semver support inside of Drupal itself for handling modules so that a module could run on Drupal 8 and 9. And also how we can add a way to start implementing Semver for for Contrib on Drupal.org. So that is sort of the next phase is those sorts of things. But that's also been overlapping with this initiative because we're also, you know, it's Semver for Contrib and Drupal 9 kind of all need to happen. So that's the other part that is pretty crucial. So the main one there is adding the option in Drupal 9 to be able to use Composer JSON files to express your dependencies. We didn't think that could get into Drupal 8 in time to deprecate OYAML dependencies for Drupal 9 because it's like every single module out there would then have a hard deprecation that they would all have to change. So we didn't want to introduce something that hard, that heavy, this late in the game. So it'll probably be like an optional thing that everybody should probably just do in Drupal 9, and then it'll be deprecated.
Okay. Just because I'm conscious of time and I want to be able to check in with Claro team too.
Yep, I'm done.
You mentioned, can you, I want to ask you for two things as a follow-up here. Can you send me links or add the links to the notes for the 2 patches that you mentioned so that people who read this after can just go, oh, yeah, okay, I'll go take a look at those.
Sure. Can you, is this doc linked in the Slack or somewhere?
Yeah, I just put it in the chat here.
Okay, perfect.
And it's also in the invite, I think. Pretty sure. So just add those. And the second thing I want to ask you is if you could either PM me on Slack or just plug it in here, a recap of the progress that you'd like Dries to share in the Dries note.
Yeah, we've been talking about that in our Composer initiative meeting. So it's we've got that on the list. There's
or you could talk to Matthew Grasmick about it too.
Right. Yeah, he's part of the Composer initiative. So you know he was just in the last meeting asking about that. So yeah, I'll make sure that we get a Dries note recap shared out. You know.
Okay. Cool. That's it then. Thank you very much.
Great.
All right. And that just leaves Claro.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Let me check. I'm looking for the roadmap link. I'm gonna paste it on the chat. Yeah, here. So here's the roadmap that we created a while ago with the beta issues that we think we need for well, the beta blockers that we need to get into the next release. And it would be great if actually the product managers or the release managers, I guess, could actually see if something from that list can be removed to be sure we will reach the deadline. And also, we have two more issues that will need release manager review, which is this first one about using post CSS for Claro in core. It's going to be probably a long or discussion, or at least it's going to need some time. So it would be great if they could check it. And the other one is about getting the editor role into core also. We need to tag it with the appropriate tags, but it will also need some product also review and also release manager review. I'm not sure if I'm forgetting something about it.
Sorry, can I just you cut out for me for just a quick second there. You need release manager review on both those issues right there. Do you need any other reviews on those from framework or core committer?
Probably product managers on the last one.
Okay. I'll note that. Thank you very much. Okay, so in general, you mentioned the roadmap. How are you progressing to your goals, considering what you were hoping for? Like, I can't tell yet by what you've shared if this is feeling on track or if you're feeling like we're in trouble if we want to make something into the 8.8 release. Give me an idea of how you're feeling about the initiative.
I think it's doable, but we are on the, I don't know how to say that in English. We are on the limit. I mean, we still need some designs to be done. Luckily, we have someone helping full-time on the designs. So it's going to move on faster now. And I think for the rest is mainly people waiting for designs to get that implemented. Lauri, not sure if you want to add something here.
So it would be great. So in terms of the implementation, I don't think it's very realistic that we would get everything done by the 8.8 release in terms of what is planned to the beta release. So it'd be good if we could schedule a call with product managers to see if there's something we could take out from the scope to make it easier for us to hit the goal. And if we have time, we would then be working on those things we scoped out. But yeah, having a call with them would be helpful.
Mm-hmm. So
and we will also need to start the discussion with the release managers to start seeing how are we feeling about putting this into core.
It sounds like that's the whole, like, you need to review both those things, but then RM and PM need to review your scoping and see if there's something that you can get into 8.8 and something else that can go and contrib.
Yep.
Okay. So you're making progress against, I remember you saying, Lauri, the global critical issues and the media issues was an upcoming goal. Is that right?
Yeah, so the media and status report page are one of the specific pages that we would like to tackle. But yeah, those are one of the parts that or issues that we might want to consider descoping from the beta release, if possible.
Okay.
So right now, I think we are still planning to get it to the 8.8 release. So I see you wrote down the not planning to get into the 8.8 release. I think we are still targeting for that, but it starts to look a bit unrealistic. And for that reason, it would be great if we could descope some of the items.
Okay. Just checking back on what we had talked about for some of the goals you had around Q3. At Acquia, you had global components, authoring components, and lower priority components for media library. How are we doing on the authoring components?
So the authoring components are still missing designs, but we have a designer working on them. So we will hopefully be able to get those done by the end of the quarter, which will mean that they will make to the beta release by 8.8. Also, the missing very important global components, such as the mini pager, the messages, and components like that. All of those has been made progress on, and that looks pretty good at this point. So that's not at risk. But some specific one-off pages, that's what is most under risk right now.
Okay. I think I've got the update that I need. Do you guys have anything else that you want to share, or any other questions or issues you'd like to discuss?
Not for me.
Okay. Congratulations on the progress made so far. It's good news to see it progressing. And I'll make sure to ping people afterwards for your next steps here to try and help you get the reviews as much as possible. All right. Let's see. I got an offline update from the Out of the Box initiative. Is there anyone else who didn't get to talk, who maybe joined the call after we'd done kind of the roll call? No, we're just about out of time, but thought I would just ask just in case. All right. In that case, I will call this meeting a wrap. Thank you, everyone who shared your updates and your information. Let's all do follow-up on getting core committer and release management review. I will tag people on this post so that they know. And I'll talk to you guys in a month. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for
Bye,
running
everybody.
the call.
Thanks.
Bye.
My pleasure. Bye, everybody.
Bye.